Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I'm super excited to announce the release of my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. If you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level in 2021, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. All right, all you positive heads. Welcome to the show. Here we grow again. So happy to be with you all. As always, and always, I probably got some other clever sayings up my sleeve, but let me get back to you with those. For now, we're going to dive into today's terrific, fabulous Thursday. Yes, fabulous is a word. There's a clever saying. Made it up, sticking with it. Before I dive in, so today we're going to talk about a post in the Positive Heads Facebook group. If you're not there, definitely join up with all the other amazing P-heads connecting, sharing, and a longtime P-head, Katie, posted something that I think warrants some discussion. So we're going to talk about that today. And also, I'm going to fill you guys in on the trippy story about Lavana. If you heard my powwow with Shaman Durek yesterday, this Lavana character came up. And after the recording, which we recorded a few days ago, last Saturday. So later that day, within hours, I had some trippiness ensue. And so I thought I would share, just on time for Halloween, to share that story. Before I do, though, dive into all of that, I would like to take a quick moment to read a review on iTunes. Actually, I'm going to read two because the first one's super short. You guys know I love my iTunes reviews. They not only help us to reach new people, but also help to fuel my fire to continue this labor of love. And this first one came in by DDDDGER. Sweet. Hey, I'm leaving this 5-star review here for you. I love you so much. Aw, thank you, DDDDGER, for taking the time to do that. I appreciate you. I love you so much, too. And let's see. Next one, Jin122, my favorite. This podcast has been the catalyst to get me back to my roots. Since an awakening in 1997, hey, that's about the time I had my awakening, I've known that I see the world differently than most people. However, I'd gotten bogged down with other people's visions. Their vision of the world hadn't become mine, but had put a lot of mud on my windshield to the world. I listen to the podcast whenever I walk my dog 2 times a day for 2 to 3 hours. Anyway, I randomly chose a podcast to listen to the other day from my library without looking, and lo and behold, I got The Positive Head. Since then, it's become my spiritual food. I listen daily, listen to authors mentioned, have started taking a Reiki course. I am who I am, and I am glad to have finally found a worldly family. I feel so energized by listening. Thank you so much for creating this wonderful space for positivity and learning. I just feel so at home listening. 2 thumbs way up, plus a smiling dog, since he often gets extra walking so I can listen. Rufus says thanks too. Well, Rufus, it's my pleasure to entertain your human. Why? So that you get extra walks. And Jen, it is such an honor to play a role in your wonderful journey. It definitely means the world to me. So thank you for taking the time to review. All right, let's dive into today's topic, shall we? Well, first I'm gonna get a little creepy with you guys for Halloween, Lavana. So if you haven't listened to my powwow with Shaman Durek, which was yesterday's release episode that was released, I highly recommend it. Shaman Durek is amazing. Does the Ancient Wisdom Today podcast. Third generation shaman from Africa. Definitely a powerful individual. Well, so what happened on that is I was talking about my child's mother and this idea. He brought up the idea of possession. And I said, I never really gave much merit to that idea. However, my child's mother, and many of you listening for a long time have heard me talk about her. It's kind of like we're yin and yang, I feel. She is very, maybe 8-9 years ago, she kind of went from being a little crazy to a lot crazy, where if you were to talk to her, her energy is super potent and powerful. And it's like you're talking to a possessed person. It's like, I am the goddess of this domain and you will all die when I move back into the Vatican, and very just crazy, crazy stuff, right? So anyway, I was telling him that he brought up possession. I said, I never really thought much about it until, I watched my child's mother kind of slip into this into this very dark, possessed seeming place in her life. And he went on to say, he first off is a spirit shaman. So he talks a lot about how he sees spirits, how he gets all kinds of intuitive information, and very powerfully so, as well as he explains some of the stories in the episode. And as soon as I started talking about my child's mother, and he went on to say, well, I think it's actually, I'm getting there's this entity Lavana, and he explained that basically what happens with really dark, energies that take on physical form after they die, they go to like these sort of lower dimensions, and then they try and reconnect to the physical through people who are a vibrational match. And then they kind of like, in a sense, that's what the possession is. It's like they're linking up with souls that are similar to the way they were in life, and that they can actually get their message out, get their energy through, to break through the veil, if you will. And so anyway, he went on to say all this stuff about Lavana was a spirit that, was a slave, enslaved people and killed people and, at a whim, and all this dark stuff. And then he started describing, does, your child's mother do this, and sort of like spot on with everything he described. And so he went on to very detailed information. So, I'm of course thinking, I hear a lot of strange things running this show, and I'm open to it all. And I don't say something is or isn't true. I'm just very open-minded, and unless it's something that really, I haven't had that experience. I can't say she's possessed by Lavana, but I'm open to hearing him talk about this idea, right? So fast forward a few hours after getting this information from him, and I'm going to lunch with my son, and I'm like, I had a really interesting powwow today. You need to listen to it, because it was talking about your mother and how this spirit, this energy, some random name Lavana is the energy that is sort of taken her over. And he looked at me kind of like, he goes, Dad, now keep in mind, she's had, my child, Bradley, was her first child, and then she's had 4 others since. So if you talk to her, part of her craziness is she's here to populate the earth that is her domain. It's wild. But she's so, out there, her mother who lives in Tampa, Florida, ends up taking these children on. So it's, grandmother's a saint because she's got these 4 children, and the most recent one is less than a year old, right? Daughter. Never met her or anything like that. And I've met and, seen the other, my son's half siblings, right? I've seen the others, but the new one is, brand new. It's a baby, 6 months old. She is. And anyway, so my son looks at me and goes, Dad, did you know my new sister, her name, what she named her is Lavana? And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? Like, here, I just heard this story. I had no idea what the new baby's name is Cosmina Lavana. So yeah, go figure. And so I was just like, of course, goosebumps from head to toe. Like, oh my gosh, talk about some validation of what, this isn't like the name Sally or Jennifer or something like that, right? Fast forward a few hours later, that evening, I ended up going to an event that was in Los Angeles, sort of a public. Typically, if I go to events, they're sort of in my, in the spiritual community, kind of Burning Man-esque kind of stuff. But this one was not. It was just it was very normal sort of club environment that I ended up at, which is not typical at all for me to go to. It's not normally kind of my scene, right? But I was there, and it ended up there, and all of a sudden, a woman approaches me at this event, and guess what her name was? Lavana. So it was just, needless to say, a very trippy day. I don't know what's going on with that, but yeah, I thought I would share. I knew you guys would get a kick out of that, and it was perfectly timed for, here we are a few days before Halloween. So make of it what you will, but wanted to share because it's a fun story. It's interesting. For me, I don't have any fear of any entities or energies like that, and I think people need to be really careful with that. I remember hearing Bashar give a talk one time when someone was asking about energies taking over people and things like that. And, just people being fearful of things getting to them, or a lot of people get caught up in the sort of the powers that be. If you're exposing, sort of what's happening in the world that's broken, something's going to happen to you, or that, many different ways people can get lost in fearful thoughts. And what Bashar said, teaching about this, he goes, look, that stuff has no power over you unless you give it power over you, that you are the provider of the power. If you are not resonating with the idea of any of those things having access to you, any entities or energies, or, whether physical or non-physical, they can only come into your vibration if they're a vibrational match to you, meaning that you're giving your fear to it. So even hearing about that, it doesn't frighten me in any way. I mean, it's like a funny, I don't know if it's funny is the right word, kind of a creepy story. But other than that, I think it's really important. Don't, any of you out there who are getting caught in the rabbit hole, I feel like that's part of the journey as people have a spiritual awakening. A lot of times it's like, okay, here's one of the tests on that path is people get tripped up on all the conspiracy stuff and UFO stuff and what the government's doing and, all these things. And, there's a lot of that. And I think you need to be really careful not to, there's all kinds of things going on. I'm sure, some of you hear is true. Some of it's probably not true. But getting caught up on any of that fearful stuff, you're giving it your power and energy, and you're inviting it in. So, not to say it's definitely going to show up if you've been scared. Don't let that scare you. What I would say is just disengage. Where attention goes, energy flows. And, you are, as Bashar put it, he goes, you become undetectable to any of these forces when you're not vibrating in a way that gives them any power. You're like invisible to them. And it kind of makes me think of actually that event that night where that the Lavana woman walked up to me. It was a costume party, a Halloween party, and I went to it and I dressed as a sorcerer and channeling source. And I had my magical amethyst glowing staff with me. Well, you're not supposed to be able to take something like that into it was strictly on the invite that was sent out. It was like no props, anything like that will be confiscated. You can't take it in. Well, I just told the story of, hey, this is a magical staff. This goes with my costume. It's, they're not even going to see it, right? I kind of went along with hey, I'm a sorcerer. They're not going to see this staff. So I literally walked right in, patted down everything, no problem. I had multiple people come up to me, hey, I had a staff or this or that, and I couldn't get it in. I'm like, well, yeah, but this is a magical staff. So, they couldn't see it. And so it's really fascinating. That's just a small example of how this works. So, give energy to what you want and not to what you don't want. And that sort of parlays very nicely into what I want to further talk about today, which is this post in the Facebook group by longtime lovely P-head Katie. And like I said, if you're not in the Positive Heads with an S Facebook group, it's private, so you can open up to other people, ask questions. Sometimes I'll see things like this and, want to run with that as the daily topic if I feel inspired to do so. You can also write me questions, Brandon@positivehead.com. But with that being said, here's what Katie wrote today on the Facebook group. Katie wrote, longtime P-heads won't be surprised. Actually, I'm only going to read part of it. There's a little bit more. I'm going to just read the part that's relevant to what I want to talk about today. Longtime P-heads won't be surprised by my criticism of quote unquote law of attraction. Not that the teaching is necessarily wrong. I think there is a kernel of truth that words carry power and that language, thoughts, and emotions help manifest things into physicality. But often proponents of law of attraction fail to acknowledge the power structures that marginalize certain communities in favor of others. In theory, we're all equally powerful and contain the ability to manifest. But in practice, some are free to focus on manifesting a new car, while others are forced to advocate for basic human rights. And I write this as someone who was raised in a New Age community and has worked directly with marginalized peoples, including refugees and indigenous communities. Further, law of attraction doesn't consider the cultural conditioning that these power structures have programmed us to believe as universal truths. Imperialist thought patterns that run on autopilot in the deep psyche and maintain the status quo. And while law of attraction is marketed to the masses as a foundation to self-help, rarely do I see it in discussions for advocating for social justice and civil rights. Self-care is important, but law of attraction seems to get caught in a narcissistic loop. There needs to be a final movement that extends help to those less fortunate. And by that, I don't mean placing the responsibility back on the marginalized and saying, just change your mindset. I mean, we all need to be held accountable for unconsciously or consciously participating in unbalanced power dynamics. All right. Well, wonderful, wonderful post, Katie, and thought, and I really appreciate it. And with that being said, there are some things that I want to point out that I think you might be missing or could need to sort of draw attention to. And first off, I'll say you're right. Law of attraction doesn't consider the cultural conditioning that these power structures have programmed us to believe as universal truths, as you wrote it. It doesn't consider anything. You started off by saying, you're criticizing the law of it. Your criticism, you said longtime P-heads won't be surprised by my criticism of law of attraction. Criticizing the law of attraction is kind of like criticizing the law of gravity. You're right. It doesn't consider anything. It just is. It is a law that governs 3D reality. And, I don't think if let's say a marginalized person fell off a cliff, I'm not going to be against the law of gravity. So this is something that's really important to point out. It's not a person, it is, or someone that has done something wrong. And I know you're talking about, how people have sort of grabbed onto it and taught it and, professed how it can work for you and things like that. And yeah, there has been a lot of sort of, low level, shallow way of looking at it, like, oh, you can get a mansion, you can get a car. Yeah, all that's true. You can also get a very troubled experience. You can also get, attract things to be that harm you. You can do a lot of things with this law that has nothing to do with anything. It responds to your beliefs, to your thoughts, to your energy. I would say there's a lot more than a kernel of truth that our words carry power and that language, thoughts, and emotions help manifest things into physicality. I would say it's the absolute truth, personally. So, here's the thing about people that are marginalized or are having, are dealing with a society that is, we're still dealing with racism. And actually, forthcoming, my next week's interview with Sevon Bomar, I just recorded, and we go deep down that rabbit hole of racism and all of that sort of stuff. And it's one of those things that sets people up a lot of times to have more to overcome. Right. Certainly more to overcome. And for those of us, me being a white male, I'm probably or I am as privileged as someone gets from those very surface level. What's your sex? What's your ethnicity or color? Right. You don't get any more privilege than that combination. Right. Everyone would agree with that. So that being said, I have I would agree with you, Katie, that, I have a duty to do as much as I can to change the unbalanced power dynamics. How can I empower those around me? Absolutely. That being said, I'm very cautious of this idea that law of attraction is, much more than a kernel of truth. And I believe Mother Teresa believed that when she was asked, to be against something that wasn't just in the world, like the Vietnam War. She said, when they asked her to march against it in this huge march, she said, I'll never do that, but have a march for peace and I'll be there. Because she understood what you resist persists. So, that's why I always say, let's be for something and against nothing. Right? When you understand that all of these unbalanced power dynamics and all these things that are happening to people that are marginalized, it's part of the journey of their individual journey and mankind's journey. And we're so quick to judge things as good or bad. And really everything is playing out the way it's meant to. And yes, we should do everything we can to, continue this story, this epic saga that we've all co-written together. How can we now, bring balance and wellness and health and all the things? I mean, the end of the movie, right? The struggle, the hero's journey, and we're all at the end of it, the hero wins, right? That's what we all want to see. We're all playing out that hero's journey tale, and we all want to contribute to that outcome. Absolutely. But let's really have the broadest perspective that we all wanted this journey, including the person that was marginalized, that is marginalized. They may not recall making that choice prior to coming into 3D, but I absolutely believe that everyone has created exactly the scenario in which they find themselves. And you think of and I know that's really tough for a lot of people. I don't believe there's ever been a victim in all of eternity, right? And that's very challenging. I get it. But it's very much like, remember when I read The Message from the Earth Spirit a few weeks ago, that channeling, which, it talked about or The Message from the Sun. I think it was talked about in both of them, really. And you may want to go back and search that on the Positive Head site. They're brilliant, like channelings from this book, The Psychic Explorer, where the entity of the Earth, the Earth Spirit, Mama Gaia, it talks to us all. And then also The Message from the Sun. I've read them both in the last few weeks. And what was talked about in one or both of those channelings was this idea that the Earth is. I remember the Message from the Sun saying, in some sense, the Earth is the last in our system, the solar system, where the Sun is explaining the sort of what all the roles the different planets play in our solar system, and the Earth, in some sense, is last. It's dragging its feet. It's the most marginalized, right? But in another sense, it will be first because it leads the way in the future, right? So, I think it was in one of those as well. It says, the greater one toils for their freedom, the greater the sense of freedom is achieved, right? And when you can understand that and bring that to the perspective, when you tie that into seeing all the marginalized behavior and atrocious things that are happening around the world. I'm not saying it makes them okay, like you shouldn't do anything about it. I absolutely agree. That's with you 100%. That is our role in the story, the hero's journey, to now do everything we can to alleviate human suffering, right? But don't get caught up in the belief that it's all happening. There's some grand mistake ultimately. It's from the ultimate perspective, perfection abounds. Everything, I believe, is absolute, utter perfection. And, when we can bring that understanding to everything that's happening, it brings us a sense of, okay, this awful thing is going on. I'm going to do everything I can to change it. But, I also understand that, I can't be poor enough to help poor people or sick enough to help sick people. So, backlashing against anything, resisting against anything creates more of it. And so that's really the very nuanced thing that we all need to be really careful of. And especially those of us who are so sensitive and empathic and really do care and really do want to see everyone being fed, no one being harmed. What a beautiful vision. And I believe we'll achieve that. They'll look back in 1,000 years and say, wow, back in 2018, there were starving children and they actually let that happen. Can you imagine? They didn't know it was all one. Wow. But that contrast gives them the experience that they're having, right? And so when you understand how important the contrast is, you take the biggest picture, the biggest view of the story that's unfolding. And, I believe when we cross over to the veil and we can really see this thing zoomed out in all the connections and the whys and the hows and the wheres and the whens, we'll weep at the beauty of the tapestry that's being woven, where everyone is getting exactly what they need to become the next greatest and grandest version of themselves. And ultimately, once they're empowered with knowing that they can take their circumstances. They may be born into terrible circumstances, but they can take those and there is a path out. There is a way out. Doesn't mean everyone's going to find it. Most don't, right? The poor typically stay poor. The rich typically stay rich. And actually, here's a clip where Abraham talks a little bit about that and why, and gives some further insight. So I would like to take a moment now and let's take a listen. This is Abraham Hicks. Most people who are born in poverty stay in poverty is the title of it. I found it on the Z Mahoon YouTube page. Let's take a listen.
So I understand that everything I have done up until this moment has me where I am. And I understand that there's always more to go, or there's always a gap. The feeling I get from just the word adventure is nervousness, so that I don't feel good. Rather than be excited to be here, I'm sort of reserved about it. So the experience of being nervous rather than excited.
Well, that's because you're trying to contemplate too many things. You're trying to take on more of your journey than the next step. What we're saying to you is, as you're relaxing and taking the next step, you can take pleasure from every step. And there is a sensation of satisfaction. The word pleasure is interesting because, so let's say that your monster bus breaks down on the Tappan Zee Bridge. Or let's say that something else causes a disruption and you are stuck in traffic on the bridge. And your first impulse is one of unhappiness because your trip is going to be delayed. You have a timetable, there's someplace you want to go, and clearly no one's going anywhere. The bridge is closed in both lanes and you can't go. So you are where you are, where you are. So now you begin readdressing your life from your new vantage point. Earlier, you were driving, and so the things that were on your mind were things like other drivers. The things that were on your mind was your rate of speed. The thing that was on your mind might have been calculating the distance between where you are and where you're going to be, and calculating the hours, and thinking about your time of arrival, and thinking about what's going to be there, thinking about the preparation that will take place while you're there. You might be enjoying the vista out the window. You might be engaged in conversation with the other people that are traveling with you, but you are having a moment that is comprised of the data that is currently in your view between where you are and where you want to be. Now, all of a sudden, everything has changed. This traffic is not moving. So now your attention is upon other things. And if you are someone who has discovered that there is joy in every journey, now you're looking for what this is going to be about. And so you look out the window and you notice that it is a beautiful day. And then you acknowledge that people are beginning to get out of their vehicles. It's sort of like a day in the park. And no one can go anywhere, and so people are sort of beginning to communicate with one another. And now your world has changed, and now you are looking at the crowd and you're thinking about who you might want to meet. And then you notice that up the road a little ways is a school bus, and several children are getting out of the school bus. And then you notice that just beyond that is an ice cream truck, and then you notice that the children are making their way to the ice cream truck. And then you notice that one of the children has a piece of chalk in his pocket, and then you notice that he's drawing something on the road, and then you notice that others are getting involved in it, and now you want to get closer to see what they're drawing. In other words, your world has changed. You are not in control of it as you thought you were, but you're still alive and you're still focused, and so now if someone had said to you, your pleasure is contingent upon you making your travel on time and you're arriving just as you expected to arrive and meeting with the people that were expecting you. If your well-being is hinging on fulfilling that, then pleasure would have to be gone from your experience, because clearly what has just happened is preventing you from fulfilling what was your intended goal for this period of time. But since your pleasure is not contingent upon any one goal, you have the opportunity to readdress your life experience. Now you can, in the spirit of making the best of where you are, begin to redirect your thinking. Now you're guiding your thoughts in a different way with the intention, and it is a natural intention, of feeling good about where you are. And so as you begin, this happened to Jerry and Esther. They weren't in their monster bus. They were in a rental car, but the bridge was blocked for hours. They spent 6 hours on the bridge with other people years ago and had the best afternoon of their life because they were interacting with people that they did not know. They got to know things about the area. It was a beautiful, bright, sunny day. It was like being on the beach to a certain extent. People began sharing things with one another. It was an absolutely delightful experience, one that Jerry and Esther would not have wanted to miss. Not something that they planned, but something that they certainly took enormous pleasure from once it was unfolding. And so what we're wanting to say to you, and we want so much for you to make an effort to receive it, that pleasure is perceptual. If you're trying to compare your pleasure with the pleasure that other people are having, you can't get there. But as you realize that when you're thirsty, there is pleasure from just having something cool to drink. In other words, when your feet are tired, there's pleasure in just sitting and taking the weight off your feet. When your feet are hot, there is pleasure in just putting them into a cool pool of water. And when you are angry, there is pleasure in finding a thought of frustration. And when you are feeling frustration, there is pleasure in finding a thought of hope. And when you are hoping, there is pleasure in reaching for a thought of more expectation or belief. And so when you begin to realize that you have complete control of the way you feel as you stand in any moment in time, and you begin to practice that ability, in time you become the master of your world. And it is a mastery that is so exhilarating, because it eliminates the need to control traffic on the bridge. It eliminates the need to control what's happening in the Middle East, or what your children are doing, or what your spouse is doing. You show yourself that you have this vibrational relativity.
So the premise is control, being able to control my feeling.
And it is taking bite-sized pieces, but the premise of the premise of the premise of the premise, in other words, the basis where you have to begin is, I am where I am, and where I am is okay. Where I am is okay and getting a little better. Where I am is okay and getting a little better. Where I am is okay and getting a little better. Where I am is okay and getting a little better. And as you let it get a little better, what happens is suddenly you feel better. Esther has the sensation that you're describing sometimes when she thinks about the enormity of their life and of the responsibilities that they have taken on. And she will sometimes say to Jerry, as she will look at a schedule or read a contract about something that they have said that they would do at a certain time, she will say to Jerry, look what's happening in our life. And Jerry will tell her. He tells her the story so many times that she would like to wring his neck when he tells her. But it is such a wonderful story about the farmer who lifted the calf over the fence every day. And every day the calf got bigger, and every day the farmer lifted it over the fence, until eventually the farmer was lifting a very big bull over the fence with ease. And so what we are saying to you is that as little by little by little by little by little by little by little you acknowledge who you are and that well-being abounds, your life can get bigger and therefore more expansive and therefore more exhilarating and therefore more fulfilling as you keep up with it. But if your life is expanding, and it is, and you are not making the effort to keep up with it, then you begin to feel like you're feeling. It feels like it's too big, it's gone too far, and I can't catch up with it. And you can catch up with it. You just have to give yourself more leeway, more latitude. You have to give yourself more opportunity to find more ways of soothing yourself into closing that gap.
And so it requires the effort to close that gap.
Say again?
It requires the effort. It requires the effort. It's not, allowing or requiring.
And what is the premise or the basis of that effort of closing the gap? What is it? Soothing. Relief.
Right.
Relief is the key factor. I'm looking for relief.
Right.
I'm looking for relief.
Okay.
And there are a lot of you who have not assigned yourself that right. You've been sort of trained that relief is not what you're looking for, that toughness is what you're looking for. And so you can resign yourself to not closing your gap to a certain extent, and much of the world is that way.
Yes.
They're just resigned to that. That's just the way life is.
Yes.
But when you reconnect with the energy of who you really are, you feel tormented.
Yes.
That's what we've done to you.
Yes.
You are tormented because now,
yes.
You see, here's exactly how it works. So you're pure positive energy. You're non-physical and pure positive energy. And you come forth into this physical experience. Now, as this pure positive energy, you are one vibration offering, this powerful signal that is radiating to the boundaryless universe. So you're offering this signal, and then you're born. And in the moment that you're born, the gap happens.
Mm-hmm.
And now you go to sleep and it closes. And you wake up and the gap is slightly there. And you go to sleep and it closes. And you wake up and it is slightly there. You go to sleep and it closes. You wake up and you meet someone like your grandmother who adores you, and her attention to you causes you to close your gap. You go to school and your teacher finds fault in something that you've done and your gap is widened. You laugh with your friends and you close your gap. You make fun of a person and your gap is widened. You meditate and you close your gap. You criticize and you widen your gap. So from the moment that you are born and you begin the socialization process, you are beginning to feel the effects of what's happening. Now, why is this happening? It's happening because there are two vibrational vantage points. There's the source energy that is really you, that is always offering this strong signal of who you really are. And then there's whatever it is that you're focused upon out here on the leading edge. So to the degree that you focus on any subject in the way that your inner being is focused, you feel good. That feeling in your belly is a feeling that feels good. It feels like love. It feels like thrilling. It feels like appreciation. It feels like passion. And to the degree that you focus in ways that don't allow that connection, you feel more and more and more of that emptiness, more and more of that disempowerment, more and more of that fear. So those two vibrational points of relativity, the relationship between those vibrational points is what your emotional guidance system is based on. So then most humans have this experience. It happens when they are born with their parents for the most part, and it begins to happen with the socialization, and it really comes on strong as school begins to try to hammer square pegs into round holes.
Yes.
And so there it is. And so now there are two ways of going about life from this perspective. What we are teaching, and the younger they are, the easier that they understand this, and some of you come along easily anyway. What we are teaching is making every effort that you can to close that expanse between those vibrational experiences. And as you do that, you feel better and better. But what a lot of people have begun to do is they acclimate to this vibration. This is what we were talking about yesterday when we were talking about thought addiction.
Yes.
They begin addressing life. They talk talk with others who address life that way, and they begin to feel some satisfaction, even though they're not feeling joy, that at least they're in agreement with a lot of other people that agree that things are wrong in the same way that they agree that they're wrong. And there are a lot of people, in fact, almost everybody that you meet is vibrating about over here in relationship to who they really are. In other words, they have sort of acquiesced to the status quo. They're taking life sort of as it comes. The light in their eyes has sort of gone out. Once they get very far past their teenage years, they are, for the most part, sort of rooted in that vibrational place. And they live lives of mediocrity for the most part.
Yes.
And that is about 95% of the population of your planet are living somewhere about right there.
Yes.
So then, someone like you meets someone like us who begins to explain to you who you really are. And you listen long enough that you begin to get your juices flowing, and you begin to activate something that has not been consciously activated in you for a long time. Now think about this. When you're thinking thoughts mostly about this vibration, even though it is really the stronger vibration of who you are, plays a less and less active role in your experience. And this becomes the dominant vibration. So here you are offering this strong pulsing, and life is reflecting, and it's not that bad because your experience, haven't you noticed that most people in the world, if they're born into poverty, they stay in poverty. If they're born in wealth, they stay in wealth. If they're born in a country that can't raise food, they live along with other people nearly starving. In other words, most people offer most of their vibration in response to what they are observing. So if you just observe this, you offer a vibration about this, law of attraction brings you more about that, and people resign to that.
Before we continue on with today's episode, I'd like to take a moment to tell you a little bit about my very first book, The Golden Key: Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance. The concept for the book initially came to me in a dream and has been followed by a next level amount of synchronicity, confirming for me that the information in the book is pertinent to get to the world at this moment in our collective evolution. In the book, I share the 8 keys to manifesting abundance that I've personally discovered over 25 years of trial, error, and deep exploration, including one golden key that ultimately ties them all together. I think most of you will agree with me that talk is a bit cheap, especially these days, and results speak the loudest of all. Well, these keys have led me to manifesting incredible results, such as an Inc. fastest growing private company, uncanny health, incredible relationships, and success with this podcast. However, I'm not any more special than you, and anyone can apply this information to achieve incredible results in their own life. I also believe waking up our planet by sharing these keys to abundance is the quickest way to help us to transition our home into the planet of paradise it is destined to become, which is why I'd like to gift the book to you at goldenkey.gift when you use the golden key code POSITIVEHEAD. I would also like to invite you to create your own unique golden key code so you in turn can gift the book to others, as well as invite you to participate in a unique abundance manifestation game with me and the other readers that is outlined in detail at the end of the book and on the website, where readers are also going to share the inspiring results of their abundance manifestation experiments. Lastly, I'm going to practice what I preach by sharing 50% of the abundance generated from the golden game and sale of the other golden goodies on the website with you and all the other readers. So if you're ready to alchemize the circumstances in your life so that your abundance expands to an entirely new level, head over to goldenkey.gift to download the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD. Also, if you end up loving and appreciating your gifted copy of the book, please take a moment to go to Amazon and give it a review, which will greatly help me reach and unlock more hearts with the golden key. So she said pleasure is perceptual. You know, this is the type of mastery that eliminates the need to control. You know, once you start getting that, pleasure is perceptual. So it doesn't matter where you're at in life. I mean, even, you know, and it truly is. They've done studies where they show people who have a awful accident and end up in a wheelchair. And a few years later, they're at the exact same level of pleasure that they were prior. It adjusts. There's many rich people in beautiful mansions, gated communities. They're just miserable in a better part of town, just as miserable or more miserable. Some of the happiest people are probably in these areas that you would look at as desolate and poor and, living in mud huts and just filled with joy. So, pleasure is truly perceptual. And once you start getting your vibrational relativity down, this is everything. I am where I am, and where I am is okay, and where I am is getting better. Every day the farmer's lifting the calf over the fence, and he's getting a little bit stronger, little by little, acknowledging that well-being abounds, and you will keep up with it as it expands. This is the way for all of us. Unfortunately, so many are looking for relief, but they've resigned themselves to toughness. And, this is how life is, and they'll always find people that will support that. And of course, they will. It's this loop, this mirroring, this domino effect that happens. This is how life is. Oh, there's more proof that this is how it is. So, yep, that's how it is. And it becomes this perpetual feedback loop, self-fulfilling feedback loop. And I love how she talked about two vibrational vantage points. You got source's vantage point, and the idea that it's whatever you're focused on is out there. It's like if you're seeing things from the expanded source's vantage point, you understand it's all unfolding in perfect divine timing. You feel good, inspired, love, appreciated, passion. You find the beauty in whatever it is you're dealing with. And, and then when you're focusing on what you don't want, you're not allowing the connection. What do with source and the way higher self views reality? What do you feel? Fear, unhappiness, pain, all of that. And, I definitely know people. We all know people, as she referenced, this thought addiction, like where people have satisfaction. Well, at least I have satisfaction that there are many others who agree with me that this is why things are wrong and what's wrong with the world. And, she said 95% of people, that's the way they're approaching their lives. And that's why, you get into this sort of story and you get locked in vibrationally. And that's why, a lot that are born into poverty stay in poverty, and those born rich stay rich because they resign to that's how life is. And so everything keeps showing up to support that. But here's the thing. We all know, we've all heard the stories of rags to riches and people who've overcome, and, those that have been marginalized who have then gone on to be great leaders and teachers and huge success stories. So it is absolutely, some people may have farther to climb, but the greater the one toils for one's freedom, the greater the sense of freedom is achieved. So anyone who's marginalized can say, wow, instead of, being angry about being marginalized and being born in a society that marginalized people of color and sex and all these shitty things, like, look at it and tell a new story of, wow, I'm such a badass soul that I chose to come in with to be marginalized so that I can have that long view, that great ascending of overcoming that and becoming, look at someone like Oprah Winfrey, or, you know what I mean? Like, wow, what an ascent, what a epic tale, what an epic saga. So anyone out there, who is marginalized, that's an experience that you can have that being born as a white male can't. It's like if I make it really successful, and you certainly would be valid in saying, well, yeah, of course, he's had certain privilege that made it easier. And I would agree with you, right? So instead of allowing the way all of this is to disempower you, it's time to flip the story and understand how badass you are, that you came in with these much tougher circumstances than many others because you wanted the challenge and you are up for the challenge. And that's why you are listening to this. You are ready to flip that story on its head and ascend and show and be the example, not of bitterness as to the way it is, but using that as a bouncing off point to the great heights that you're meant to scale. That is truth. That is the story. There is a version of you that does that. Get in alignment with it. Be it to see it. Love you all so much. This is Wookiefoot. The song is called Just Visiting. Hope you enjoyed as much as I do. Love you all so much. I believe in each and every one of you. Till next time, journey well. Also, before we cue up today's song, as a quick reminder, don't forget to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.
Well, you may see a man close up his open hand and see how greed might motivate a reckless fist. And you will witness pain of people's petty pursuits for gain, but you will never see a hearse with a trailer hitch. No, you will never see a hearse with a trailer hitch. Just visiting. In the end, we're only visiting. On this hedonic treadmill, building appetite with collections of those little things that shine. Camels will not fit through needle's eye. Your camels will not fit through the needle's eye. Truth be told, the truth will be told. Only hear it when we're listening. We'll unfold for young and old, 'cause in the end we're all just visiting. To bury, there will be no pockets on the pants you're wearing. And on that day you will see what it all is worth. So earthlings, don't keep your treasures here on earth. So earthlings, don't keep your treasures here on earth. No, earthlings, don't keep your treasures here on earth. Because in the end, we're only visiting.